A lot of religious believers claim to believe in a God because they think that their lives are meaningful. So the question is, do you need to believe in God to believe in a meaningful life? Let's consider it. Hello, I'm Chico. Welcome to the advAnswer, where we're moving faith forward. I have a story for you. So I'm a graduate of the Air Force Academy, class of '99, and a buddy of mine, David Broder, was a friend from that place, and I remember having fun with the guy, going out and kicking it with him. And what I distinctly remember most about Dave is that he. I remember seeing him right after graduation. Air Force Academy, if you're unaware of it, your whole freshman year just stinks. Like, you just getting yelled at all the time, and people telling you how stinky you are and how how you can't dress yourself right and all kinds of bizarre stuff. And it was tough, and the academics are tough, and not a lot of sleep, and you go through 4 years of that, and then finally you graduate, and you get this feeling like, I made it. There's nothing you can do to take this away from me. I conquered. And I remember seeing right after graduation, David Brody, we used to call him back then. Saw Brody, and his face was full of life. Right. I remember thinking just, how looking ahead, everything was before us. Right. Here we are, the conquerors, and you can't do anything to us. Fast forward several years later, he had gone to a different aircraft, first a different pilot training, and then a different aircraft. And I hadn't seen him since then. And then one day on the news, I heard that somebody had busted into the Kabul airport with an AK-47 and just started spraying. And one of the bummers about being, a former military member is stuff happens and you're constantly like checking the headlines to see, is it one of your friends, and they don't tell you right away because they want to alert the family first. So, you see some big incident happen to some pilots and you're like, how old were they? What rank? Okay, do I know anybody? Yeah, so, and I found out David Broder had been killed. And here's what was cool though about it, if anything could be cool about it. I found out that, most people, somebody comes in with an AK-47 shooting up the place, try to dive out of the way. Brody actually charged at the guy. This is the same knucklehead I remember, sitting out and doing goofy stuff with, charged at the guy to stop him from attacking others. He took 9 bullets, 8 of which easily could have gone to somebody else, So, I was dumbfounded when I found out about that. When I heard that Brody had done that, I thought, wow, a hero, right? A guy that I knew and loved, a hero. How is that possible? I remember seeing pictures of his wife and kids at the funeral and just thinking, oh my gosh, how is this possible? But you might think, I tell the story because I think it illustrates, you might think that there are some things that we do that are meaningful regardless of whether anybody believes that they're meaningful or not. Right? Now I'm saying I don't think I can prove that, right? I can't show you using logic, but I think hopefully you can see that this is a meaningful act, and it was a good act, whether or not, anybody even knew about it. Maybe nobody believes it's a good act, maybe nobody thinks about it as a meaningful act, but hopefully you can see there's some things that we could do that are meaningful. And if that's the case, we have to ask the question, how do lives get meaning? So imagine we're walking along in a forest and wind just happens to pick up some paint that was left over and splattered it across a wooden plank. And I ask you, oh, look at that. Oh, what does that mean? You'd probably say, well, nothing, obviously, right? It was just an accident. It just happened to happen, right? But now if we're walking along and I see somebody painting, using paint, putting the same kind of marks on a piece of wood, probably not the same form, right? But at the least, the same stuff. And I ask you, what does that mean? Now we have meaning, right? Now somebody could be writing something. And my point here is that we only consider something meaningful, a physical thing meaningful, when that thing was created by an intelligent being with some kind of meaning, right? Typically, physical things don't have any meaning whatsoever. They just are what they are. They don't stand for something else. It's only when an intelligent being says, I'm going to take this to stand for this, that we say, or I'm going to make it this way, and it's going to mean this. That's when we say it's a meaningful thing. So you might think, if our lives are meaningful in the way that Brody's actions were, then it implies that we were created by some intelligent being with that meaning. Another way to look at this is through purpose. So imagine I'm walking along the forest and I see a rock, and I ask you, hey, what is this rock for? What is its purpose? And you'd say, well, it's a rock, right? But now if I have a wrench, and I say, no, what is this purpose? Now we say that the wrench has a purpose. And the only reason we say that is because we know somebody made it with a purpose. And here's a support to that idea. If I were to tell you this wrench stinks, and you say, well, why does it stink? Because it won't make me a sandwich, right? Well, that's not the purpose of the wrench, right? The purpose of the wrench is endued by the maker of the wrench. That's the only reason it's got the purpose that it's got. And in the same way, you would think, if our lives are purposeful, then they must have been given purpose by something that made us with that purpose, for some goal, for some end. And that's how we can get purpose. Now, some people will think, well, don't we give ourselves our own purposes, and don't we make our lives meaningful for ourselves, right? Don't we have our own meaning? And yes, we can have in our own heads a meaningful idea of our lives. But then again, I mean, you can have in your head, and I don't mean in this in any pejorative way, but sort of to bring out the point, you could think about unicorns if you want to. You could say, unicorns are really real to me. But when you say that, right, we typically don't think that unicorns are real. Thinking that in your head makes them actually real, outside in reality, right? We think that is something that's in your head, and if you actually believe it, that you're deluded, right? And in the same way, if we think our lives are meaningful and they're not actually meaningful, like a walking around unicorn outside of the mind, then maybe we would say the same thing, that you're deluded because you think there's something there, but it's only in your mind, right? I actually wrote a blog post on this on thephlosopher.com, and I have one video on the Philosopher YouTube channel on meaning and philosophy, if you're interested in that. But that's all I have for today. If this has helped you with your faith, if it's helped you to understand why a Christian would believe what he believes or what she believes, please like and subscribe, and also share, on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, anything like that. If you have further questions about this idea, or if you have questions that you'd like me to address some other time, please leave a comment below, and see you in the next video. Adios.